First thing is called as we'll understand the introduction to language. What is that? In this particular part, we will understand definition of language. Language is a definition. So when we talk about definition of language, we say that language is a tool. Tool mane buझुଛ जेमति कि tester is a tool to identify whether the current is there or not. Isn't it? Similar to that, language. Language means what? Any language you talk. Odia, Hindi, English, Sanskrit, or Telugu, whatever the language you say. So, language is nothing but a tool for communication. Because when you speak, the other person understands. So, what you speak, the sound is known as the tool. Understood? So, what is language? Language is a tool for communication. Got? Second thing is called as the characteristic of human language. Now, when you say that language, do you think that only human beings have the language? Other animals are also there, isn't it? So, like when I say something, you understand. Similar to that, the cow, sheep, goat, tiger, lion, peacock, so hen, they do have also language or not? How? Now they produce the sound. Through the kind of a sound, they communicate to their near and dear or partner. So that is the reason we separate human language from the natural world, right? Or animals in the world, isn't it? So why we separate them? Now, because human language have the arbitrariness. Human language have arbitrariness. It means human can speak multiple language. Human can produce different sounds. Human have control over language, isn't it? But if you talk about the animals, do you find out that the cow have a different sounds? No. The same sound. Do they speak like the way we speak? No. Do they have multiple language? No. Isn't it? They generally say, isn't it? So, only thing that we find out that the human language which is unique in the world, right? So that is why we call it arbitrariness. So that is the characteristic of what? Human language. Like human being have the characteristic. Humans language have also characteristic. What is the characteristic of human language? Arbitrariness. What do you mean by arbitrariness? That control, authority, authority over our language, isn't it? Second is called as a productivity, right? So not only arbitrariness, we human language have also productivity. Human language follow with certain characteristic: arbitrariness, displacement, then productivity, then cultural transmission, isn't it? So we are going to learn the characteristic of human language also. Understood? The first one is language. What is language? Is a tool for communication. Second, characteristic of human language: arbitrariness, productivity, displacement, and cultural transmission. Cultural transmission, you understand? On the basis of the culture, we change, isn't it? Like the person wants to speak to me in Odia language, I speak to him in Odia too. But if he changes in between Odia to English, I'll also change in between Odia to English. Right or not? That's called as a cultural transmission. Right. So then the third one is called as what is the difference or how language versus communication. Right? Language versus communication. So we will come to know that how human language different from animal communication, which I already pointed. Right? Language versus communication. When we say that communication, it means you say whatever. If I understand, then that is communication. Right? Sometimes what happened, you give me the sign, right? You give me this a sign. Through that, I understand what you want to convey, right? So, and for that, I don't need language, right? I need sign or symbols. Through that, I understand, right? So, these are the three things which will introduce to language, right? The first thing we'll discuss about introduction to language. So, what is language? Language is a unique human faculty, right? Faculty means called as a human teacher, you can say that. So, that makes an individual to express what? Thoughts, right? So, express thoughts, express emotions, express ideas, right? And facilitating or helping to what? Interaction. Interaction between one to other, conversation, interaction, and also understanding, not only interacting, but also understanding. So we are not mentally abnormal that we interact only. We understand what we interact, right? So that is what you can say the job of the language. So it is central to human culture. It is central to human culture, intellectual development, and social relationship. Right. So what is that? It is main part to human culture. And it is nothing but a developing knowledge. Right. People who have the intellect ability. Right. So they do the communication like that. And also through the language, we create the relationship in the society, isn't it? Now, you all are the student. Your community becomes the student, means student friendly. You communicate to science students, you communicate to commerce students, right? Because of the kind of a language you use with them. So, language helps us to make the social relationship, makes the intellectual development, and it also main part of the human culture. Because without language, there is no existence, right? So that is what means language is known. Next is called as a means we will come to know about the broad information about the language. Let's say that if you talk about definition of language, we discuss introduction to language. If we talk about definition of language, what we find out, language is a structured system of symbols. What is that? Now, on the basis of alphabetical letter, these are nothing but called as a means Odia alphabetical letter, or you talk about English alphabetical letter, isn't it? So those are nothing but called as a structured system of symbols, right? So which we do nothing but what we use it for the spoken, which we use it for the sake of written, or you can say that which we use it for the sign, right? Sign, and that are used for the communication, right? In a very simple note, what is language? Now, language is nothing but a means a structured symbol and sign which are used for what? Spoken, written, and signed for the sake of what? Communication. For the sake of communication. So, language also serves as a what? Tool. Tool for what? Encoding and transmitting information. Encoding, right? Encoding and also transmitting. So obviously we transfer the language, right? So that the other person understand that what kind of a language he speaks, and means what will be the means what will be the reply I supposed to give, right or not? Because he understand. So, language allows individuals to share thoughts, experiences, and knowledge, isn't it? So, what I share is knowledge. What you have learned from your past is your experience, right? And what you think is nothing but your thoughts because of the language. So, language shares thoughts, knowledge, experience. Understood? So, language is more than just words. More than just words. Language involves what? Rules. So, whatever the rules are given, they are also language. So, language also conventions that enable effective communication. So, whatever you express, so that must be something called as effective, right? Because when I say something, you concentrate to my words. What I am saying, you try to think of it, right? So and you utilize it. That is known as a means because of the language, it does what? It expresses effective communication. Clear my point? Now, when we talk about the characteristic of human language, we say that what human language possesses unique features. What are the characteristics that I pointed? Arbitrariness, isn't it? So productivity, then means cultural transmission, isn't it? So and displacement, arbitrariness, then after productivity, displacement, and cultural transmission. Now, when we talk about arbitrariness, I understood that authority that we hold, isn't it? So, the connection between words and their meaning, words and their meaning is arbitrariness. Let's say that why do we say crow refers to the black color, right or not? Having the feather, a bird, isn't it? Why not crow is called as a hare? Because crow means bird. Hare means we understand that human beings have or animals have. When we say that tiger, it indicates that the means wild animal. When we say that snake, you understand it's a reptile, isn't it? It means we have the words which have a particular meaning, isn't it? We have the words which have a particular meaning. It means when one says something and one has the particular meaning, that is known as arbitrariness, control over our words. So that is what it is stated. The connection between words and their meanings is known as a arbitrary. Right? The meaning of arbitrary is what? Particular control over something. Right. So, for example, there is no inherent reason why the sound dog represents the animal. Can I say that dog is bench? No. If I say, call this dog, you will say that no, it's not dog, it's bench. Isn't it? So, in that case, because dog represents animal. Right? So, like this, association is a product of connection or convention. So, a product which expresses a particular thing, isn't it? So, that is known as arbitrariness. In a simple note, you try to understand that, right? Which you can write. What do you mean by arbitrariness? You can simply write the example also, means why we call the dog as the animal. Right. So not call it as the bench. That is what the human language characteristic of arbitrariness. Simple. You get the 2 marks. Right. Clear my point? Second characteristic is called as a productivity. When we say that productivity, so you can say that human language or humans can generate means infinite number of sentences, isn't it? We can generate infinite number of sentences from a limited set of words and grammatical rules. So what we have? We have sentences, and when we make the sentences, we use the grammatical rules, isn't it? So those are nothing but called the productivity, how we utilize. So if I stated about productivity, what do you understand? Productivity means that called as a human can generate infinite number of what sentences. Infinite means now unlimited. Unlimited number of sentences from a finite set of words and grammatical rules, isn't it? Even you talk about that. How many alphabetical letters we have? How many alphabetical letters we have? A to Z, 26. And within those 26 letters, we form words, right or not? And whatever sentences we make sentences within using those of the 26 limited letters. So therefore, we can make unlimited what sentences, but those unlimited sentences with the limited alphabetical letters or limited grammar rules. Are not we? Are not we? So I'm a coach in the city. So I'm a grammar rule ko parts of speech. 8 parts of speech. Noun, pronoun, verb, adverb, adjective, conjunction, interjection, and preposition. And within those 8 parts of speech, we form what? Numerous sentences using that rules. Right. So that is why when we say that productivity, so productivity stated that how means how much ability we have. Let's say that you all are individuals, right or not? But you can do whatever you want, isn't it? You study, you work, you can do numerous things, isn't it? Similar to that, limited grammar rules using infinite sentences are the example of productivity. Productivity of what? Human language, right? So, are characteristic of human language. So, did you understand arbitrariness? Then the second one, means, sorry, arbitrariness, in which we understand that means arbitrariness. Why we call it arbitrariness? Because of the word which have a particular meaning. So second is called as a productivity, in which we talk about that how we make infinite sentences with the limited grammar rules. Got? Now, like you can say, this is nothing but a creativity, right? This creativity only applies with the what? Human language. Right. So, for creating new ideas, creating complex expressions, and also artistic forms like poetry. Artistic forms like poetry. We also can write poems, isn't it? Now, the third one is known as a displacement. What is that? Displacement. Now, what is that displacement? When I say that displacement, it helps us, or it tells us, or it enables us. Displacement is another characteristic of human language that enables discussion of things not present in the immediate environment. Not present in the immediate environment. You can talk the kind of a moment you spent in the past, isn't it? Let's say that what you did yesterday, you can discuss today, don't you? କାଲି କଣ କରୁଥିଲ ଆଜି ତମେ କହିପାରିବ ନା କାଲି ତମେ କଣ ଖାଇଥିଲ ସେଟା ଆଜି ତମେ ମନେ ପକେଇ କହିପାରିବ, isn't it? So in that case what happened? You speak the language that enable discussion of things, discuss the things not present not present at the moment. So but you talk about that what things that held in the past, what you did in the past, you can speak immediately in the present situation. That is what. So it is also said that such as past events. So you can also talk about what you are going to do in the future, future possibilities, right? What is going to happen, you can say also. Or also you can talk about abstract concepts. What do you mean by abstract concepts? Like you can talk about imaginary ones, right? Imaginary thoughts like justice, like love. You can talk about that, isn't it? So those are known as a displacement. It means you are present at the moment, but you can talk about past or future. You can talk about abstract or imaginary things like justice or love. Got my point? So then, so this actually helps us what? This helps us to change and adapt over generations. It's not that the kind of a thing you do today, it is the thing that is done means in your past, in the future also people are going to do that, isn't it? So that is why it is known as a displacement. Now, coming to the next one, uh, see, you can also say that what, let's say the kind of an example. For example, like humans can talk about what prehistoric dinosaurs who present in the past. We can talk about them in the present, right? So, or hypothetical life on Mars. So you can also talk about that. Means you are not going to live in Earth. You are going to live on Mars, right? You can talk about that also. So that is what known as a displacement. Now coming to the third one is called as a cultural transmission, right? Which is called as the fourth one. So, what is that cultural transmission? Now, cultural transmission is called as a language that is not genetically inherited. So, what do you mean by language that is not genetically inherited? It means when you came out from your mother's womb, you started speaking Odia or Hindi or English? No, isn't it? So you can say that it is learned. Your mother said that I am your mother. Call me Ma. Call me Bohu. Isn't it? Your father said that I am your father. Call me Bappa, Daddy, or means whatever, Appa. Isn't it? So you make the relationship. You understand he is my brother. She is my sister. He is my teacher in college. He is my friend in college. He is my friend of neighborhood. Isn't it? Now, what happened? You come to know about the language, right? Means from your surrounding, it is not inherited. Inherited means something that you learn from your means mother's home. But things are different. You don't learn everything or anything from your mother's home. What you learn, where you learn from whom? Means from your surrounding, from your family, from the society, which is transmitted. What do you mean by transmitted? Like we say, no, infected, transmitted, isn't it? So, and that is what known as a culturally transmission, cultural transmission, isn't it? So, it is learned through interaction and others in cultural context. Right. So, and this feature allows what languages to change. This cultural transmission helps what now languages to change, language to adapt over generations. It's not like what today. It's something like happening in your next generation and the next generation over generations, and it reflects social changes, isn't it? So, what we learn in today's discussion, introduction to language, what is language? Then we talk about that definitions of language, right or not? Then we talk about what language versus communication. Let me point out while we talk about language versus communication, so language is also a type of communication, right? Not all communication is language, right or not? Not all communication is language. Like I told you, sign. This is not language, right? But you understand that. So, and when we talk about human language, so human language differs from other communication system, isn't it? Like if we say that language is a type of communication, why we say that language is a type of communication? Because language is not communication, right? Or any language means, or not all communication. Sorry, Any language can be called as a communication, but not all communication will be called as a happen through language, right or no? So in that case, let's make the differentiation between what how human language differs from other communication system, such as those from the animals, right or no? The first thing is called as a complexity and structure. What is that? Now, when we say that complexity and structure, so what I try to point out, now human language uses a dual layer structure, right? Dual structure you can say, right? So what is that dual structure? Now, when human language have the sounds, which is known as a what do you call phonemes, sound, right? So that some sound combined into meaningful units, right? Now, what is sound? What is unit? When we say that sound means phoneme, in other word, phoneme. And when we say that meaningful unit, it means morpheme. Phoneme, morpheme. So, which forms words and sentences governed by grammar, right? So, when we say some words, it has a sound, and that words, when formed into a proper order, it takes or it rules by grammar. It rules by who? Grammar, right? Or it is ruled by grammar. But in the case of animal communication, such as bird song, or you talk about bee dances. So they lack this complexity and generative capacity. So you won't find out that bird song or bee dance carries with some kind of a grammar, some kind of a rule. But human communication or in human language, when we speak something, we try to focus grammar order, right or not? Those that you won't find it in animals. First. Second is called as arbitrary symbols. So when we say that arbitrary symbols, we understand the word tree does not visually resemble a tree, but we understand that tree, right or not? So human language relies on what? Arbitrary symbols. So if I say that animal communication often uses signals directly tied to specific context. Let's say that if you see the cow makes a sound, so wherever the other cows are present, they come or they means make the same kind of a sound, or the cow calls to the calf. So the calf can come. But when we say tree, we do not generally call to tree, right? We means generally point out the symbol. So tree, when I say tree, it means you understand. Means the author is just or the speaker or the person is telling about nothing but the wood, right? Or means which have a leaf or flower or fruits, isn't it? That's what. So that is known as arbitrary symbol. It means when we take a word, it has a particular meaning. And we do not call to that, we only symbolize that. Right? So, but in the case of animals, it is not that. So they call so that the other can hear it, isn't it? Then the third one, which we say, means first complexity and structure, because our language have a complexity and structure. What is that? That's called as when we speak sentence, it has a grammatical rules that animals don't have. When we say arbitrary symbol, when we say certain words, it has a symbol, right? So, but we don't call. So third one is called as a displacement. Most animal communication is restricted. Restricted to what? Restricted to present moment. Right? Most animals means communication is restricted to the present moment and immediate environment. Whereas human language allows abstract, right? Human language allows hypothetical, right? And human language also have temporary displaced conversation. Temporary displace conversation. So this is called as the third. Fourth one, creativity and productivity. When we say that creativity and productivity, human language is open-ended. Open-ended, right? So what do you mean by that open-ended? Now we have the capability, or we are capable enough of what expressing novel ideas and adapting to new context, right? We have the ability of what means we have the ability of discussing whatever is given in the noble ideas, or whatever means the new ideas we can share new ideas. Whatever my idea is not the same idea of yours, you can also produce new ideas, right? That is what nothing but a creativity. So human language is open-ended, it expresses novel ideas, and it adapts to the new context. New means and but animal communication is generally fixed, right? And also limited to specific scenarios or specific situations. That is why it is called as a creativity and productivity. Creativity indicates novel, new things, and also means we can adapt to the new context. New, we can create new context. We can also adapt to new context. But animals don't have that. Right. So animal communication is generally fixed and limited to the what? Specific situations. Right. Then we find out the next one is called as a cultural learning, like I have already pointed. So we also understand language is transmitted. Language is transmitted. Transmitted. How it is transmitted? Socially and culturally. Right. In the society you live. Therefore, it is transmission. Pandemic. We live in the society, that is why it means infected to many, no? Right or not? It transmitted to many people. That is why the government declares that means everyone has to stay at their home. Similar to that, when we know a language, so that language is transmitted to other people when we live in the same society. Right. So language is transmitted socially and culturally. With the children acquiring the language, children acquiring the language, no. So language of their own environment. Let's say that mother, so a baby who newly born baby always means sleeps on the lap of her mother or its mother, isn't it? So that is why means she cries. So mother understands she cries for the milk, right? So when she grows up, so she means calls mother or mama like that. Only couple of words she knows, ma, milk, right or not? So a couple of words she knows. So it means her environment is limited. But when she grows up, she goes to school, right? She goes to office. So her environment, means expanded, and she knows a lot of things. So therefore, you can say that children acquiring the language of their environment, but animal communication is more instinctual and less reliant on social teaching. But animals don't have that, right? You talk about the kind of a sound tiger, the kind of a sound means sheep, the kind of a sound zebra, right or not? So they don't have a specific. So they are limited, right? Instinctual and less reliant on social teaching. So they don't have the kind of a social teaching, right? So ultimately, what you can draw in this particular part, language is a sophisticated means called as hi-fi, right? Uniquely human quality because it finds out only in human being. So that goes beyond more communication. So language is beyond more communication. Sorry, mere communication. It's not only means a type of communication. It is more than that, right? So its characteristic like arbitrariness, displacement, cultural transmission, and productivity, isn't it? So that are or that enable humans to share complex ideas and create rich cultural and intellectual traditions. Right. So, and by contrasting what? By contrasting it with the animal communication, how it is different from animal communication. So it is known as the unique, and unique of what? Human language become even clearer. Right on me. Understood the point? So this is the first part of the first unit. Right. So understand this. I'll send you the notes to you. The podibility the work. Right. Your job is to only remember these 4 points. What are they? You can write on your own, right? So five other points you write on your own. What is cultural transmission? What is arbitrariness? What is displacement? What is productivity? Isn't it? These are the things. If it comes, you can write it in a two lines, right? If it comes in a 5 words or 10 words, you can write all these 4 points, all these 5 points. Enough.